Hey there, Adrienne Elise here. Welcome to the Gaia Daily for November 4th through 7th, 2022. Wow. We are feeling a huge culmination of energy moving into this total lunar eclipse that happens on Tuesday, November 8th, election day in the US. So we have this very strange, timeless energy going on with being in between eclipses. Jupiter has retrograded back into Pisces. Mars is retrograde in square to Neptune. All of these things making us feel kind of like, oh, stuck in between what's going on. But as of yesterday, when Venus came into conjunction with the south node of the moon, we're feeling an acceleration energy towards this lunar eclipse. So, Mercury has joined Venus and the Sun in Scorpio, and together they're just making a parade of energies. And first coming up to the south node of the moon, activating the south node, which we haven't really felt yet. And then moving into a square with Saturn and Uranus, um, a T square. And so that is what's happening for this lunar eclipse. First, Venus comes into this T square, meaning making an opposition with Uranus, and then a square with Saturn in Aquarius. So Saturn square Uranus is a big generational energy. And we've been feeling it all the way since January 2021. So we've had over a year and a half of this very strange chapter. And Saturn square Uranus seems to be about this coming up against the stubborn structures that have not been able to shift and change. A lot of us have felt like, whoa, I feel like a different person. And so much is energetically shifting, but the world just is like, oh, la, 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 ti da. We're all going along just the same. And it's very, very strange. It almost has a feeling like we're in parallel realities. And it's like we have our lower self and our higher self kind of at odds with each other, trying to figure out who we really are. And that old timelines and energies falling away, and yet nothing to really catch us in the new yet. And this kind of describes this whole energy. But Saturn square Uranus, we got Saturn in Aquarius, Uranus in Taurus. So this square is a culmination energy of what it means for these planets to be in these signs. Saturn is our manifest reality and the laws and rules of time and reality. And in Aquarius, though, it's like, whoa, what's reality? And it's a preparation of what structures need to change in order to move into this energy of the Aquarian age. So in square to Uranus and Taurus, we're talking about Uranus as a higher frequency vibration, our higher self, our future self, our ancient wisdom. And so the channels are opening to this energy. Very powerful time. Here we are, Scorpio season, eclipse season, and then it's like the opening of the heavens wanting to speak to us directly in this astrology. And it's kind of surprising after so many years of feeling completely disconnected and alone, right? So, um, but that's Uranus and Taurus. Now, Taurus, so Uranus represents this other aspect of our being and our potential. And yet in Taurus, it's about our self worth and value and money systems and our relationship to money and wealth and having what we need to survive and feeling worthy of having what we need to survive. Feeling worthy of our higher, more true self, our higher technology available right here in our very own body. And this is the deal. We've seen this. We've been talking about this. This Uranus and Taurus has an energy of like, it's right there, your new world, your new financial system. Like, we're going to be basically like resetting and giving back humanity what's been stolen, and having a very positive change is on the table for us in the next couple of years. But how can we move into that abundance if we don't feel that we deserve it? And humans are just programmed with like low self-worth around It's just a long story to get into, but, it has to do with Saturn and Aquarius because it goes all the way back to Atlantean time, where we bought into our higher technology available in our body, what over lifetimes we have not been able to give ourselves permission to access again, even though we've already had it. Um, so the programming from Atlantean time says that our higher technology that supernova souls brought to the earth caused destruction. And in a way it did, but it was like just the same old story. A few of the elite, the ball and the infiltration and distortion that we're still trying to undo because it was technology, but it was technology misused as a weapon outside of our body and directly against humanity. So now we hold this, and all of humanity is programmed with this, like lowly worm business, right? We're just a speck out there in the universe, floating around all alone, insignificant. And it's just so not true. And especially supernova souls. You have this right here. It's on the surface, it's awakening, it's coming alive. And of course, as this comes alive, it's going to bring up that fear programming. You can't find the fear programming until you start to move into your power. So just keep that in mind. Because Uranus activation of this total lunar eclipse is going to be powerful energetic frequencies, is the message kind of coming through there into our body. And so we'll kind of explore that. But the Saturn and Aquarius aspect of this square is about whether, the structures of the Aquarian age and what we need to change, what needs to change in order to shift into the Aquarian age. And going back to Atlantean time, the last age of Aquarius, and where the story of so-called misuse of technology that we took the blame for. I've had this message from the very beginning of these downloads about supernova souls. It's just starting to make sense that when supernova souls take off the burden of what they've been carrying, of the shame and the blame and the karma that's not their own. And is this it? Is this it? That we are internally, deep in our subconscious, blaming ourselves for all that's gone wrong on the earth? It's up to us to fix it. No wonder it's such a difficult place to be as a supernova soul here on earth right now. But we're starting to understand and see the bigger picture of the story. And if we never actually caused those catastrophes, but we took on the blame. And so the message was that when supernova souls take off this burden of karma and what they've been carrying for humanity, that's the game over for the dark side and the lower matrix. And here we are. We're recognizing that this shame and programming is just completely misplaced. It comes from the Piscean age where dark is light and light is dark and good is bad and evil is, it's just we got all confused. And this is all coming up. Are you feeling that energy of like going back into the Piscean age with Jupiter back in Pisces now? I've seen people have kind of like a return of physical symptoms and emotional energies that you thought you dealt with, that whole thing resurgence. But this is really good because this whole energy of low self-worth programming is hidden deep inside of us. Deep. And we need this energy to excavate and find that. We're finally ready to face it as souls in our evolutionary journey. And this astrology is giving us every chance to finally get out of jail. This is the whole deal. The Saturn Uranus square is so much about this, that what we really need to do in order to move over to the age of Aquarius is to have our true autonomy as individual souls. If we're loyal to outside energies and giving our energy away, then we can't come into our higher power. We'll never be able to handle it or keep it. You see what's happening? And then humanity as a whole, it's so important for us to understand that, how can we break out of jail if we don't know we're in jail? If we don't know we're slaves. And so we're coming to find this. And that's what's playing out in our world. It has to be exceedingly clear that humanity has been kept and will continue to be kept as slaves in a very scary way, like social credit scores and digital currency, and Big Brother in charge of every move you make. And so we're at this crossroads place. And the only way we get on back on that ideal timeline is to be willing to clean this up and come back into our power. We are the free energy. We are the disclosure. And wow, this total lunar eclipse is really speaking to that because so what we have is this weekend, Venus, just before the lunar eclipse is on Tuesday, and the soul group session is going to be on Monday, and the information to sign up for that is in the box below. I hope you can join us. So this weekend, Venus is coming into the square. So Venus just yesterday crossed over the South Node. Now, the South Node in Scorpio is like we talked about, we have not felt this energy. It hasn't been triggered for the whole last year or so that the nodes have been in these signs. So we're just now feeling the South Node in Scorpio. And it's like, whoa, where did that come from? Just like a Scorpio, like laying in wait. Whew, for the right time to make a pounce. And that's what we started to feel the last couple of days with Venus coming up to that South Node. Then Venus goes right into an opposition with Uranus and it's square with Saturn this weekend. So Saturn and Uranus are no longer an exact square, but they're only 1 degree out. And it's really interesting because we had Saturn turn direct on October 23rd. And that's kind of like, okay, the Saturn square Uranus is over. This chapter's over. Uranus is still retrograde. And then Uranus retrogrades back to 16 degrees on the day of this total lunar eclipse, which is at 16 degrees. And then we've got all of our personal planets in Scorpio triggering a T square, uh, coming into T square, triggering that Saturn square Uranus. And that's the deal with these. The bigger planets are kind of in the backdrop, and we don't necessarily feel the influence of those directly in our lives until our personal planets come in. So the fact that the square is finally letting off, it's 1 degree out, but still very strong. And now our personal planets on a total lunar eclipse with Jupiter back in Pisces and Mars retrograde square Neptune. And it's like, whoa. It's almost like this 2 steps forward, 1 step back thing we've been feeling for the last few years is like it's like a whiplash. It's going faster, but it's still 1 step forward, 2 steps back. But maybe there's a roundabout magic way out of this. That's what this astrology is speaking to. But anyway, so we've got Venus triggering that square, T square with Saturn and Uranus this weekend. And then the Sun and Mercury catch up to each other. So the Sun comes up to the South Node on Sunday. Mercury comes up to the South Node on Monday. And then Mercury catches up to the Sun. Very powerful because Mercury and the Sun are exactly conjunct in that square, T square, with Saturn and Uranus, and of course, Uranus right there next to that full moon, or the full moon next to Uranus. So it's like, whoa. And what this is an energy of like a mirror. When you're talking about this battle that's been going on, it's almost like we're living these 2 different realities, our lower self, our higher self, and trying to get it sorted out. And Uranus represents that higher self, that future with future technology, ancient wisdom, and our connection into our own akashic records and higher vibrational frequency. And so this is right next to the full moon in Taurus at 16 degrees, 1 minute. And so the moon is our emotional self, and it's a reflection. Of course, that full moon is a reflection of the sun. And of course, it's an eclipse, it's lining up, they're exactly in alignment. And so this eclipse will be visible. And so the eclipse is then that full moon coming into its full fullness right there as Uranus just comes back to 16 degrees retrograde. And so it's like they're meeting there, reflecting with the Sun and Mercury exactly conjunct. So Mercury is like our everyday consciousness, our perspective, our mind, our it's about time, our relationship to time on a daily experience, it's Mercury is the messenger. Mercury goes back and forth between our higher self and our lower mind. So Mercury and the sun is who we think we are. It's our illumination. Mercury and the sun together is brilliant mind. It's recognizing who we are and our greater potential. People with sun Mercury conjunctions in their chart, it's just absolute brilliancy. And so that coming into recognition of who we really are, but in Scorpio, like where we've been hidden and hiding, across from the full moon, right there with Uranus. So our higher mind and our lower mind in absolute perfect mirror reflection. Ooh, and Scorpio, and whoa, that sounds kind of intense, right? Yeah. And then add in the square with Saturn in Aquarius. So it's interesting. Whenever you have a T square, there's like an empty energy, a black hole, and this would be in the sign of Leo. And right here at the middle of these signs and um, moving into just past the middle, Saturn's at 18 degrees, will be at 16 degrees. And so um, a very interesting energy, because it's kind of like we got these messages of this Mars retrograde period of time as a deep remembering and reinitiation. And apparently, this astrology says that starts now, if it hasn't started for you. And eclipses, the effect of eclipses, it's like a 6-month cycle. So it makes this next 6 months about coming into who you really are on a massive level, like a huge and massive rearrangement of your life to be more true, living more true. This is the Saturn square Uranus is frustration about where our physical reality does not fit our energetic truth. So the next 6 months are about an absolute complete rearranging. We're being asked to make changes. It's easy to find ourselves complaining about the outside world and when is it going to change? When are we going to see? When are we going to move this ball along? When are we going to tip that tipping point? But what is it we haven't been able to change in our lives to set ourselves free from jail, from being a slave? And so that's on the table, and it's a lot of pressure, but it's also it's just the energy is ripe for these changes. And so the Mars retrograde has everything to do with this. And Mars is in Gemini, turned retrograde at 25 degrees on the 31st of October. So still hanging out there, about to move to 24 degrees, but hasn't yet. So it's just kind of lingering in that, giving us that same feeling of like timelessness. Like Mars is our main action go planet. When he's like hanging out at the same degree for a couple weeks at a time, it's like, oh, and then square Neptune in Pisces. And it's just this like, I don't know if I'm even coming or going. And just sitting in this reality of our voice being so silenced and so stolen from us that we don't even know we have a powerful voice. With supernova souls, these reluctant leaders, how have we been kept as slaves and gotten so admired into this matrix reality? Well, one of the main things that the control energies have done is used the compassion of the human as a way to control a human. And so it's an interesting energy here because Mars square Neptune, and we're feeling this for all of October and all of November. It's so intense. It's exact next from the 19th to the 22nd of November, just as the sun's getting ready to move over into Sagittarius. So that'll be a very interesting time there. But this Saturn square Neptune just being like, because Neptune is like Pisces and it's a bigger collective consciousness. It's a spiritual energy and a connection to something greater. But Neptune transits bring a lot of confusion because there's all these delusions in between us and that greater truth. So Mars retrograde just is like, so Mars, because it's in Gemini, Gemini is about our expression. And and our truth, voicing our truth. So we're feeling the effects of lifetimes of suppression of our voice and truth. And we're like sitting in the pot of that. And maybe that has to do with some of the changes that we're being asked to make. Like, is it time? Not right now, because Mars is retrograde. Is it time in these next 6 months to put yourself out there in a way that you haven't felt like you should, could, or would, but know have this inside of you? So that's what's going on. And we need to use this Mars retrograde wisely for this reinitiation, to go to these deep places within, to sit in these feelings, and find the strength and confidence to live our greater truth. But we've got Black Moon Lilith in Cancer coming in as of the 30th of October, in exact trine with Neptune. So this is changing that Mars square Neptune and harmonizing it and bringing a very magical possibility of spiritualizing the darkest dark. So it's like, wow, what a combination, because we're going into it in Scorpio season, and it's on the table, it's getting revealed. And this is the darkest dark that has to do with the dark mother archetype, our delusion of separation. And this Black Moon Lilith trine Neptune and square to Mars is like a mystical, magical opportunity to take that darkest dark that we didn't even know was there and like spiritualize it back into perfect love. It's like a polarity shift within our heart, and taking these deep traumas of the feminine, which is basically the persecution of the light of the Piscean age, and transforming that back into our compassionate love, capacity for compassionate love that was stolen from us through these manipulations. And so it's kind of like, whoa, busting through into a way bigger picture that can help us get through this time and see that it's all worth it. Because we came here to have Earth is known for the level of duality, right? We came here for this really intense experience of duality, in order to have something to work against, to come back to God as efficiently as we can, to source, to one within us. And so this is kind of like, whoa, this dark, scary stuff. And then there's this one point of light, and you're sucked through that portal, and the polarity of your heart changes, and that deep, dark black hole, that delusion of separation, becomes this beautiful rose, white rose of compassion. And so interesting energies there, exactly when Jupiter is now at the end degrees of Pisces. Jupiter will be moving to 28 degrees Pisces as of the 14th of November. And that will bring Jupiter into a very interesting sextile with Pluto. Now, they're only 2 degrees, they're only just within 2 degrees, so it's not an exact sextile. But because these planets have such a big energy, we can tap into this. This is like, wait a minute, there's some magic here. Wait, there's it looked all dark and scary, but it's almost like together with this Black Moon Lilith trine Neptune, it's like kind of like taking the darkest, the most poison part of ourselves, the toxic, compensated, condensed energy of toxicity, disease, and distortion, that exists in our field from over lifetimes, and taking that toxic poison and turning it into a magical miracle medicine. So Jupiter in the end degrees of Pisces, Pluto 26 degrees. So Jupiter will be at 28 degrees Pisces and Pluto at 26 degrees Capricorn. These are the last feminine signs of the zodiac cycle. And so for them to work together while we have Black Moon Lilith trine Neptune and Venus South Node, T square with Saturn here. Oh my goodness. It's all a perfect storm. Get out of jail free card. Come on. We're leaping out of these old stories and starting to write a brand new story. right? Because what's happened is that these deep subconscious programs have been informing our current reality. Again and again and again, we loop back into these trauma patterns. And supernova souls are so over it, you know? And so, can we write a new story and inform our life brand new in each moment, today, here, now? And this is the energy we're moving into, because Jupiter will turn direct on the 24th, like we talked about, right before the sun moves into Sagittarius and Thanksgiving in the US. Very sweet energy there. And Jupiter direct will feel good. But then Jupiter comes out of Pisces and moves back over the Aries point on December 21st. So that it's like, get ready for a rebirth. Um, it'll take Jupiter doesn't come out of retrograde shadow back to 8 degrees Aries until February, mid-February 2023. And so that is going to be your incubation time. It's a rebirth, but massive amounts of assimilation, changes, upgrades on our physical body and our whole psyche. And so with Mars still retrograde, it's saying initiation. The journey, we're moving forward in a big way, but it's inward, you know, and to find that voice again and that truth and then come out in confidence. So I would expect a huge expression of truth and creativity and new projects blooming in the new year, 2023. Mars comes out of retrograde on January 12th and then comes out of retrograde shadow March 15th. So we're doing the internal work to be ready to run with our new expression. And it's profound and intense. And this Uranus full moon conjunction is exactly confirming this. We're claiming back, feeling worthy, and overcoming the fear program and the authority contracts to coming back into our higher power. And it's not that we're coming into it, it's coming into us for this full moon. So radical self-care required as these higher frequency vibrations enter into our field, into our world on a cellular level. Probably some detox reactions. I've already been seeing this kind of across the board of these old symptoms coming up and detox symptoms. So just take really good care of yourself, drink lots of good, clean water, and rest when you need to rest, because we're on a massive internal journey into the underworld, outer space. And so, buckle up, buttercup, and just be as present as you can for these mystical and magical times, because there's some magic here. And thanks so much for being here. I hope you'll consider joining us for a soul group session, a group intuitive session to make the most of these crazy eclipse energies. And that's going to be on Monday, November 7th at noon Mountain Time in the US. And it's so the information to sign up for that is an information box below. And it's a group intuitive session, basically where we look at shared past life pictures in order to get that healing, clearing, guidance and harmonization in this process that can be helpful for supernova souls. It's also such a great opportunity to connect with supernova souls energetically and open up to your deservedness for and worthiness for your soul group, you know, starting to forge those connections on the astral plane. So I hope you can join us, and the information to sign up for that below. Have a beautiful and wonderful weekend. Know we're heading into a powerful squeeze and portal. So just keep breathing, keep loving, and let love rule. That's what this is all about, is coming back into our true compassionate nature. We haven't been able, we had to lose it and forget, and we had to let go, and we had to become the lowly worm. And, you know, we had to go to the darkest depths of this human experience in order to have the full experience, to be able to understand and be here for humanity as we come into this next stage of the process. And all things are pointing to this. The next 2 years, incredible changes on this planet for the best, better, and best. So here we are, jumping onto that ideal timeline together. So I hope to see you at that lunar eclipse or on the next update. Till then, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.